If you're looking to start your own side business and you're having a hard time trying to figure out what to do, what I found out is go ask the people. And that's what we're going to do today in this episode, is figure out how to find some little bit of side work for you in your own hometown. Now remember, we're looking for some pretty easy jobs. Easy to find, easy to bid, small scale stuff. Your own neighborhood, your own backyard. You can go about this a few different ways, just like those contractors are doing, the landscapers, the painters, the fencing, the tree guys. They're all leaving those business cards on doors. You can go knocking on doors and leaving cards, and that's one way to do it. You don't always get the best response, but hey, you might get some work out of it. The other way is not necessarily knowing the customer, but knowing those contractors. They're already doing all that legwork. If they come knocking on your door, give them one of the cards. Who knows? One of the jobs might come along, they need some metal work done, and they can put your work into their bid. And then, you know, now you're a part of the business. And that's how I got this job. The house was getting painted just a few blocks over, and the customer wanted their handrails painted around their porch. But before they did that, they wanted to see if they could turn their handrails into a couple gates. Got a little side work to do, and a good video for you all. All right, just walking up on the customer's house. I don't want to film anything more than I have to here, but this is one of the handrails. Simple, small. It's fixed here, there, and there, and he wants this whole thing to hinge back here and open as a gate. We're going to end up taking this off, pull a couple measurements, make these posts, put caps on them, put feet on them. I should have all the sheet metal at home. Now this one's on the direct opposite side. They want to have access to get to the backyard a little easier, but they don't want this whole thing. It's a little longer than the other one. And come it this way and open the opposite direction so that they can go out this direction. And basically another 4-post situation going on here. We're going to need 8 posts total, and then we're going to pull some measurements to see the height of everything and where we were going to go from there. Shimmy, 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 shimmy. They're in the back of the truck. Now we just go to the metal supply. There's not a whole lot to this little job. A little bit of math, and that's about it. So we're gonna go to the metal supply. You can actually have a metal supply cut all the pieces for you. They usually charge you a little bit more, but if you don't have a really good way of cutting material, this could be your best bet. You also have to put your faith in someone else's hands, making sure that they cut it right. In total, we need about 30 feet of it. We're gonna have a little bit extra, but you always wanna plan for a little bit extra. Put that in the bid. But a lot of variables come into play when it comes to on the spot kind of bids. I usually try to back away from that, and I'll tell them that give me a day, let me get a material quote, let me think about it, how long this is going to take me, and then I'll give you my rates. And if they're still pushy, you know, do some quick thinking and just bid high, and just let them know, like, look, this is a high bid. I got to save my butt somewhere in case something goes wrong. Under promise and over deliver, right? I'm under promising them it's going to cost extra or more than they thought, and then I'm going to over deliver by getting what they want under the price. Hopefully that's the best case scenario. You got the time, just sit down and write it all out. Makes things a little bit more clear. Now a lot of this stuff is learn as you go, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't really do this in the correct order. I've already started working on this thing, and I didn't even give the customer the exact complete price before working. I trust this guy, so I didn't think it would be a big deal, and if anything, it was just going to be a couple bucks more depending on the material costs. But you always want to look at the job, go home, think about it, get the cost of materials, get that already said and done, and already get a good hourly price and bid it as honest as possible. And don't buy anything until the customer approves it. You don't want to be shelling out anything first or buying the material first to just get started. You'll get burned, I promise you. What we're going to end up doing is just taking the fences that we've already taken out, and we're making a gate out of it. So we've already put the 45s on the little gate. We've already shrunk it down a little bit. I'm still waiting on hinges. Always let the customer know if there is a bit of a deadline or if something's holding you up. Just keep in communications. Don't ghost anybody. We're going to end up making a couple posts as well. We're going to blend things down nice and evenly, make everything welded up, cleaned up. They are going to end up painting it. We're going to also make sure that we use those existing holes with those existing brackets so that we can mount it to the sidewall too. Also put a little bit of latches on. We're going to go ahead and knock out this longer section. Now when you're doing jobs like this, anything that you can do to save time will save you money. Unfortunately for me, my chop saw blade, I used it on a bunch of stainless and I thought it was doing great and it was holding up, and I took it to one piece of that carbon and it just smeared it. So not going to use my chop saw much today. There's always the option that maybe the only thing you have around is your angle grinder. I got a 5-inch cutoff wheel on here. It's 3/64. It's pretty thin. There's definitely a proper way of using a cutoff wheel. It's not the fastest way. It's not the most efficient way. Probably not the best way to save you money, but if it's all you got, it's all you got. So let's do it properly with a cutoff wheel. Now I only need to cut 4 pieces of metal. It's really not a whole lot of an issue just having to pull out the old angle grinder and do it. Now these are going to end up having miters on them. I want to make sure my miters are going the right way. And I'm just going to go ahead and eyeball the end where it's going to be. And then right there at the top, I'll make sure that I can look down on it and almost make it across the top side. And then right where it comes across, you know, that's about where that miter should be. The worst part about having to do things right with an angle grinder is the fact that you got to lay out all of your sides. So we'll mark our 30 inches long right here. That's 30 inches all the way across. And then I want to go to my miter's side. You need to make sure that you're right on the money whenever you're flipping and trying to put a square back on, because these markers and stuff that you're using to mark, they're not exact if you don't put that square in the exact spot, and it usually has a little bit of a takeoff. We'll make sure that our miter is right. Now, like with a chop saw, you just chop it right here. You don't need to worry about it. It's going to go straight through, but in order to make sure we have the right miter all the way, we got to lay out all of the sides. It's a little ridiculous, but that's the way we're going to be doing all of these. Just gonna take our time. We got our 2 miter cut pieces. Now we're just gonna cut 2 straight pieces for the post. These are gonna be 33 inches. You should think about how much stick you actually have. This we got, you know, 10 foot of stick. If we could have them in bigger sticks, we could probably fit more cuts on each stick and have less drop. For example, if I wanted to use the one 10-foot piece to cut all 4 of those little pickets out, or all 4 of my uprights for the gates, by the time I get these 2 cut, I'm just shy of 60, so I'll only be able to get 1 more. And that last one, I'll have to get a whole new stick in order to get that last piece. Now, if all I did was tell them to give me 12 feet instead of that, then I would have plenty and have a little bit of drop left over. I'll get some use out of it regardless. Now, as you flip and roll and mark all 4 sides of this, I don't really care to measure all 4 sides. You're wondering if you're doing it right. By the time you make it all the way back around, that square should go exactly across to your very first line you made. And if you're off by a little bit, it's probably because you weren't marking it exactly where you should have been. Now, to pull off a good square cut with a cutoff wheel, you're just going to score everything all the way around. I'm just going to put a light score in it so I know that now that mark is marked. That's where I want to cut. And then we're going to transfer that line slowly up to the top. Now all I'll do is roll it and do the same thing. You're not always going to be cutting square because you're human, and if you try to correct it, you're going to get this wheel in a bind. Now this wheel has a guide to follow all the way around, and it puts less effort into you having to do all the cutting. All you got to do is make sure that cutoff wheel stays in the groove that you already made. I'll usually leave the top last. If you leave the bottom last, it'll usually flop, but now you can just pick it up and pop it off. It looks pretty square, but we're gonna definitely need to clean things up. Definitely not the fastest way. I'd much rather have my chop saw running right now, but it is just a little gate. There's a little bit more method to the madness when it comes to cutting these 45s. I like to do my 45 sides first and try to keep everything as square as possible through the cut, just into the sidewalls just a little bit so that I can connect those lines. I probably could have saved myself some time, aka money, if I would have just bought me a new chop saw blade before I got started with even just these little bit of cuts. Not only did it take longer to cut, it's going to take a little longer to prep because we've got a little bit more burr action going on, and we want to make sure that everything fits up properly and clean. And we got to prep all these tubing, so it's probably a good time to point out that 3M wants me to spread some awareness about this sweepstakes they got going on. It's basically a box, got all these different types of abrasives inside, but you also get entered the chance to win one of the Polaris UTVs, a Lincoln Power MIG, PAPR hoods, one of the 3M speed glasses, a grinder with more abrasives. 3M knows how to put on a good giveaway, and you get to see what all these abrasives are about, so in case you want to get some more later on. So let's pop it open and see what we're going to use to prep some of this stuff. We got our pieces for our feet and our end caps also cut out on the plasma table. I made things a little bit quicker And then we still gotta trim our actual piece. So there's probably everything we need in this box. Alright, we got some Cubitron 3 cutoff wheels, and then we've got our grinding wheel trial pack. Looks like some 1/4 inch. I'm not going to use those because I don't need to take that much metal off. Now these right here, these are the cheddar. This is what we're going to end up using to clean up and prep the ends of those tubings. It'll remove the burrs really well, get everything nice and flat. This fiber disc right here is what we're going to go with. Got our flap disc right there. That might be what we use to do a little bit of a finish on there, but really we might be able to skip that flap disc and run straight into these Scotch-Brites, because these things take out some pretty serious scratches. I use these a lot. So that's the biggest thing when it comes to fabrication work. You don't want to do the pipe welder thing and leave all those hacky grinding marks like with this 1/4 inch grinding disc. We want a nice finish on our handrails. So we're going to end up using probably the fiber disc and the Scotch-Brite Clean and Strip Pro in order to clean everything up. Now that that's all prepped nice and schmackety clean, we've got to chop down this gate or this rail, make it die off and make a gate, and then we can connect it all. I think we're about ready to tack things. We've got the Everlast Hurricane 220 MTS-C. It's a really cool machine, especially if you're kind of just a small shop and you want to do a little bit of everything. It has plasma cutting, MIG, TIG, stick, AC/DC TIG, like it will weld everything under the sun, and plasma cut. So that's pretty neat. Outside of that, today we're just going to be running some C25, 75-25 gas, regular hardwire 035 MIG. We want to make sure we check all of our consumables. Make sure we're running 035 contact tip. Make sure that our gun's in good shape. 19 volts, 19, 18. Probably come down on this a little bit. That ought to be good. We want to run in our inductance up a little bit, closer to 70, and our burn back. Two things that I kind of concern myself with when it comes to some fine tuner settings on these little inverter machines here, but now we can tack things in. Of course, we had to put on some actual welding gloves. Those G-Tech gloves from PIP are good, but these contour grips are going to be better for welding. One of our partners as well. Go down in the description, guys, and check them out. Outlaw Leather, Albacore Benzel, got some really sweet MIG guns that pretty much fit any welding machine you have. We usually got some discount codes there for you too. I know not everyone's going to have a fixture table, and I apologize for using mine, but I also am not going to apologize for using mine. Our fits actually were not all that bad. For just using only a cutoff wheel, we got some pretty good fits. The right length, they're fitting in square. Always do your 45s first. Now I'm not looking where that blade's going on this side. I'm looking, making sure that blade stays square with my already cut 45s. And as soon as it breaks, I'm not going to try to cut anything else. The trick to doing anything with this grinding, with just a grinder, is just not to over grind stuff. If you see that you gouged something, it's okay, don't chase it. Put these little end caps on. They don't have to be perfect. Put our little foot. This is all eyeball stuff because it's really not that crazy, and the edge of this table is very square. So lining it up with one of the lines on the table. Quick techie tech. Post tacked. Now this is the one that's coming off the wall for the post. Then we'll have the gate here, and then the other post on the other side. And these guys were already in the existing piece. That gives me a ton of play. So I made sure that this was short a little bit, because I can always scooch it in when I get its final destination. Got it shimmed up, clamped down where I need it. And that builds that part. Check it out. Rail. Just got the hinges in from Amazon. These are like kind of some barrel hinges that you might would put on a barbecue pit. They're pretty cheap, really easy to weld on. But there is one way that you want to make sure you put them on, and that's with this little grease nipple going up. You don't want it pointing down, otherwise your gate just gonna fall down. Don't ask me how I know that. I got it all laid out on the table. Before I weld it all out, I do want to pull an overall measurement just to make sure. So I'm supposed to be at about 60 inches. And I've got those other feet that slide in, and that gives me like too much trust amount of play, but looks like we're about an inch short, which is what I kind of wanted, because I wanted those to kind of still give me a little bit of play. We're going to pull it all apart, weld everything, put it back together, and then put these hinges where they need to be. Just make a couple quick little weldy welds. Now that we got all those parts zip zap zerp, we're good to go ahead and switch over to our 3M and get to the blending. Installing these hinges are really easy. Just make sure whatever side you're trying to do, that nipple side is up. But you basically just stick them in the groove, make sure there's a little gap there, and tack and weld. That's it. That's basically going to be it for these two handrail modifications. Again, these were solid handrails. We spliced and put a gate in with some hinges with a latch, and now we've got to do the real test and see if it all fits up on the job site. Because if it all goes well, we just zip, 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 and we're good to go. Whew. Install day was a success. We got it lagged into the brick. We got it lagged into the brick on the bottom. Got the gate all built. I have to be 100% transparent. I did fit everything up, and I did not account for elevation. I ended up having to come here on site, cut off the hinges, cut off the latch, and do a little bit of rework. All these things are all learning experiences as you go. Should have pulled that elevation, and we wouldn't have probably run into that problem. Can't charge the customer for that kind of issue. Can't charge them because it took you longer to cut stuff because you decided to cut it with a grinder. Time is money. If you want to make more money, save yourself some time, do everything right the first time. That's the best advice that I can give you, and get your name out there. That's how you'll get more work like this. Full transparency, material cost, close to 140 bucks, 600. This is what I charged the customer. I got everything done in about 8 hours. Had to do a little bit of extra hours for the rework, but it's all wrapped up. Both gates are done. Customer's happy. We're good to go. Now to pull off a good square cut with a cutoff wheel, you're just going to score everything all the way around. And plug in your grinder first too. Hey, how you get into this sucker? There we go. Well, that was nice. No, I dropped a cap. Whatever, we'll find it. I'm tired of this, Grandpa. That's too bad.